How are
Hey,
you?
KB, how are you?
I'm good. I'm KB with the Beat. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so I first have to ask, how did you get involved in this project? And really, what was your first reaction? Were you a big fan of the Vertigo series? Or, did you come in kind of as a blank slate, which I always think is kind of nice creatively when turning something from a book to screen adaptation?
The answer is yes to both of those. I was a huge fan of the graphic novel when it came out in 2005. I remember I bought it in Newbury Comics in Boston. I read it. It was terrifying, but but it was cool because it was so out there. It was such an other idea. It almost, was akin to like aliens or, another crazy idea like a pandemic, right? But it struck a chord in me because I had never really imagined war in our own backyard. And like most readers who came across the graphic novel, you just want to see more of this world. And so the graphic novel really worked as it was built, with a photojournalist at front and center, because by nature of being a photojournalist, Matty Roth is a passive character and he's a proxy for the reader. And the reader just wants to see what happened to Central Park, what happened to the Empire State Building. They want to explore, and that's his job. So, I went on that journey. I loved it. And then, I put it aside. I came back to it about 2016, and the whole thing took on a whole new meaning that was much closer to home, much more personal and much more terrifying. So it was almost as if I was approaching it as a new reader. But even though I know all the stories by heart, but that graphic novel is so grounded in its time and place, post 9/11, our military interred abroad, that it was a disservice to the idea, to the property, to adapt it faithfully. It needed to reflect our time and place, and that time and place, like I said, it was much more present, so there was a healthy amount of reinvention in the narrative, keeping the spirit of the comic. But the other thing that I was really keen on doing was, the comic really revels in the concept of a war-torn Manhattan, again, because it was such an out there idea. That felt degenerative to me. It felt like too tender of an idea. I didn't want to spin in divisive ideas or stories. So, I ran in the opposite direction. And I remember the faces in the studio when I said, okay, what if we take DMZ and make it a hopeful story? And they're like, yeah, okay, man, go for it. But that was the guiding, pole star, is how do we make this, assume a war, start in it, and tell the story of what happens next, which is inherently the story of a disparate people coming together. It's a story of hope. It's a story of rebirth. Those ideas felt generative, felt like something I could really sink my teeth into. And beyond that, the comic is also incredibly masculine, very testosterone dominated, angling for turf and angling for currency. The character of Z, who I rebuilt, was another additive element in that capacity. I knew I wanted to anchor my story around her, because I wanted to infuse this world with a feminine energy and an inherent maternal superpower.
And so when you reimagined, kind of redid Z in this iteration, how much collaboration did Rosario Dawson have with you in that process of bringing this to life?
I gave her all the scripts. They were done. But so to that end, she was pretty specifically drawn out. That said, every single Sunday during filming, for the week ahead, we would have a 1 to 2 hour sit down for the scenes that were coming, just kind of drilling down into the lines, getting specific about who she was. Z is someone who grew up rough, in the streets of Spanish Harlem in the 90s and the 80s. And, there was one instance, for example, where Rosario, it's in episode 2, where there's a fight between Parco's love interest, played by Juani Feliz, Carmen, and Rosario. And she was like, I'm not going to fight. Like, I wouldn't fight here. Like, I've transcended this. I've evolved. I have a kid. And, moments like that where we were like, how can we demonstrate your past and how you were begot, while staying true to who you are now. So there was a lot of input, not just for her, but for everyone. And I think that's just a reflection of their investment in the characters, and our mutual investment in creating the best possible product.
It's interesting that you say that because, Z and Parco obviously grew up in the same way, right? I mean, like
Yes.
them being a couple, they grew up in the same way. Z has evolved in a way that Parco has not. And so while we kind of see that, I understand kind of both sides of the coin for them. Like I understand where Parco is coming from in this kind of unthinkable situation, and I understand Z's evolution as well. So what I do like is how each character has kind of unique intentions, and whether you agree with them or not, whether they have hidden agendas or not, you still can kind of relate to where each of them are coming from. So which character do you relate most to, and why?
There is, there's parts of me in all of them, really. I actually can't answer that, not to cop out, but there's a fundamental humanity to each character. I have 3 kids, and I completely understand Parco and his paternal love for Skell, and I also understand Parco's pursuit of wanting Skell to survive and be set up for success. Parco has a demented idea of that, which is you got to be a soldier. It's a time at war. You got to become this person, and power is the currency you need. But it is coming from a place fundamentally of protecting your own. I get Alma. I would do anything for my kids, and I also, she does something in throughout the miniseries, which is she starts backing Wilson, and that's a means to an end, because all she wants is this one thing, but it comes around to bite her in the ass, where she has to be accountable for this public endorsement, of someone who maybe she shouldn't trust. So there is that kind of human quality of like, oh, I just want this thing, and who cares about anything else? Let me push all that aside and do what I need to do to get it. I've been there. I've done that. So I can relate to that. I also relate to Wilson, where he, has reinvented himself. He's this sort of, he's an immigrant who has experienced life, working hard, has never known comfort, but he's constantly felt like a second-class citizen. And now he has this chance to totally reinvent himself. I mean, what kind of a fantasy, what kind of a person doesn't understand that fantasy where you could just become whoever the hell you want, and achieve whatever power you want, seduce whatever sort of people into following you. That is a sort of id-led pursuit that we all have, but he's doing it for his community. Right? He left China, he came here, and now he only focuses on his 12 square blocks, So he's creating as he said, his own Eden. And then Freddy is Skell. He is the DMZ's boogeyman, but this kid has been locked in his 15-year-old self, right? He's been made to be a soldier at war, which is what happens to people who go overseas to fight. They're put in these circumstances where they have to pull triggers and kill people, people like you and me, right? And that's him. So I relate to him insofar as he's trapped, and he has so much grief with his past, unresolved issues with his parents, and he has these private passions, these private loves, like his own art, that he keeps from everyone, and he doesn't have the confidence to share with them, or maybe he doesn't even feel like he deserves to share them with anyone. So, I really try to build a human out of everyone as opposed to a good guy and a bad guy. Because ultimately this show is about people coming together. And, Parco has one line in the show. He goes, "I can't kill you off. There's only 300,000 of you in this world." And that, I think, is a demented sort of way of looking at it. But like, we are each other's neighbors in this world, for better or worse. It's not about shutting people out. That's degenerative. That's not going to lead us anywhere. We have to find a way to work together to see the humanity in one another. And that was the approach we took for every character.
Oh, I like that. So my last question really is, just running this mini series, what is something that you learned that you will take with you on your next project?
Oh, that's a great question. Every single job I've had has been a new sort of growing experience, in Sons of Anarchy, it was running an episode, running prep, running production meetings and being on set. Bastard Executioner, it was actually running an entire season, manning budgets, figuring out how we're going to get 200 horsemen with flaming arrows on a beach in Wales. And then that graduated to Westworld, where, you write these things. Some of the best moments to me on that show and on DMZ were, you show up to the production meeting with, a script that calls for a Civil War fort and 200 robot Civil War people fighting a SWAT team. And you lay it out to your team of peers and you're like, how are we going to do this? And everybody goes, I don't know. And you start asking the questions. Well, what do we need? How can we get that? What do we need? How we can? And so you just start spinning on, it's baby steps. And then to this, we were faced with the prospect of creating a war-torn Manhattan. Go figure. How do you do that? How do you pull that one off? So I think for me, what I would take from this is just there isn't always an air of humility. And I think what I learned with this one is I gained a certain confidence in saying, I don't know, which you have everyone looking at you, asking you questions, looking for answers, and you feel this pressure to respond. But sometimes the most, the best moments and the best ideas come from being able to say, I don't know, let's talk about it. And I think taking that air of humility forward is the thing I'll practice most in the next gig.
Well, I love that. Yeah, transparency, definitely fosters collaboration. So
yeah, there's actually a couple other things that I've learned along the way. I would say, being able to be transparent and say, I don't know, would be a DMZ specific one. But along the way, there's two other simple things that create the best dynamics. And they're so dumb. Are you ready? Say great work and say thank you. Because you have these people who are busting their butts to give you the best sets, to give you the best props, to give you the best special effects. And it's all an additive pursuit. They're all creating an indelible part of the show. And everyone matters so much, but it's so easy to take it in as a viewer and be like, oh yeah, that was great. You're just seeing the whole. But you create a family on these things. You're together for months at a time. So just fostering that sort of affirming and additive experience is top of mind for me.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for chatting with The Beat. Can't wait for everyone to see it, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.